Well, good evening, and I'm so happy to be here with you guys. I come to you from Atlanta, Georgia, where we are all still mourning the loss on Monday night. It was a hard loss. The city it was a tough night. Tough night. Last year with the Falcons, this year with the Bulldogs. What do? You just keep trying, right? That's all you can do. So, but I am, like Bruce said, I work with an organization called Orange, and we are a nonprofit organization that creates resources and tools for parents and for churches and for schools, and we create books and music and curriculum and all sorts of things because the heartbeat of our organization is to come alongside the parents and to help them parent better. And so that's what we try to do, and so that's what I do for a living. But my most important title that I have, besides the one that Bruce mentioned, is that I'm a dad. And I'm a husband and I'm a dad. So I want to introduce my family real quick if I can. So this is my family up here, and this is my wife. And we've been married for just over 13 years now, and her name is Crystal. And what you may not know, I don't know if Bruce mentioned this or not, my last name is Clear. So legally, my wife is crystal clear. Like, it's so fun to go shopping with her, right? Because I'm like, hey, why don't you pay this time, right? And she has to get out her driver's license, and people always look at it, and they're like, really? And we're like, nah, we're kidding you. That's our fake license. Here you go. Here's our real one. So anyways, she's loved that. I told her, I was like, hey, are you sure you want to marry me? I mean, besides the love part, because you're going to hear about the crystal clear thing forever, and she hears about it almost every day. So when our kids were born, I thought, hey, why don't we just carry on the tradition, right? So my son, when he was born, you know how you go through that whole process of trying to pick out the perfect name for your kid and all the pressure that comes with that. One night we were talking about it, and I was like, hey, babe, I got an idea. Hey, what if we name our son Loudon? Think about it, all right? Loud and clear. She had the same reaction you did, right? Just silence. And so she was like, that ain't going to work. It's not going to happen. And fortunately for my son, maturity went out that night, and his name is actually Nash. That's my son. He is 10 years old. He's in the 4th grade. So when my daughter was born, I thought, because I'm dumb and I'm stubborn, I just thought, well, maybe I'll try again. Maybe, she'll be more open to the idea this time. So I thought, hey, when we were talking about the names, I said, what if we name her Brighton? Let me just think about that, all right? Because here's what I had in my mind. Here was my dream, okay? I thought when we would go to family parties and functions that we would introduce ourselves and we would say, hi, we're the Clears. This is Crystal Clear. This is Loudon Clear. This is Brighton Clear, and I'm Mike. So it's nice to meet you, right? But that didn't happen either. So, but her name is Kennedy. I did get Brighton in her middle name, so that was kind of a win, right? So Kennedy, Brighton Clear, that is her name. And so that is my family. And so I wanted to talk to you tonight, as Bruce talked about our kids, right? Kids are everything. You have your kids, your grandkids, the kids that you work with at this church and the ministry. And so when I thought about, what do we want to talk about specifically as it relates to kids, I came back to this whole subject of time. So tonight I want to talk to you about time for the entire time, all right? And when you think about time, there have been many great philosophers who have wrote about the subject of time over the last few decades, okay? I mean, philosophical giants like Hootie and the Blowfish. They sang a song about time. Anybody remember that one? No? Yeah, you right there. Thank you, all right? Cyndi Lauper. She penned the lyrics to one of her hit songs called Time After Time. And it was Cher, I believe, who posed the question for all of humanity to wrestle with for years to come when she sang, If I Could Turn Back Time. So tonight's talk is not about how to manage your time more effectively or how to get more done in your day. Instead, it is a talk to simply lean into you, to encourage you, to remind you to keep doing the things that you probably are already doing with your kids. Because what we do for our kids, it matters, right? And so tonight I want to talk about what matters, why it matters, and then I also want us to help discover a secret that is hidden in the rhythm of our everyday moments with our kids. You see, the gift of your time with your kids is far more remarkable than it may seem at time. That's why what you do this week with your kids matters, and every week it matters. So a few years ago, our organization started giving to parents with kids, we started giving them a jar a little bit smaller than this, but we started giving them a jar full of marbles. And inside our jar of marbles was 936 marbles. And that number 936, it was specific for a reason, because 936, it represents the amount of weeks in a child's life from birth all the way through high school graduation. So we would give parents these jars of marbles, and then we would challenge them to reduce the marbles in the jar to accurately reflect the amount of weeks that they had left with their kids until they graduated from high school. Once they did that and got that all squared away, they were then given the simple assignment of removing one marble each week. Each marble representing a week in the life of their child. And over time, this process of losing their marbles, if you will, it had a profound effect on these parents, for it reminded them to value the time that they had with their kids. It made each week matter just a little bit more. And it reinforced a simple principle that I want to share with you tonight, and it's this up here on the screen. When you see how much time you have left, you tend to do more with the time that you have now. Now, when you hear that principle and you see that principle for the first time, it's a bit depressing, is it not? Almost a tad bit morbid, right? Like, count down the days that you have left with your child till they graduate from high school. We should all do that. It sounds really sad at first, but according to some, it's perhaps the smartest thing that we could do. In fact, one shrewd leader in the scriptures prayed this prayer in Psalm 90:12. He said, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." So how does counting down the days and the weeks that you have left with your child give you a heart of wisdom? The honest answer tonight for me is, I don't know. But I know visualizing the time that you have left with your child, it will help you as a parent. It will help you to pace yourself. It will help you to narrow your focus. It will help you to guard your margin. It will help you to value quality interaction. And it will help you to become more intentional about what you do with your kids. All of which probably gains you points in the whole wisdom category, right? Now, does this mean that we have to make every second count with our kids? Does this mean that we have to turn every minute into some sort of profound teaching opportunity with our kids? Does this mean that we have to start journaling and scrapbooking and Pinteresting all significant moments of our kids' life? The answer is an easy no. Unless you want to drive yourself crazy and everyone else around you crazy. So what about another alternative? What if we as parents just decide to make history? 1 week at a time. Do you know that you as a parent, you are already making history with your kids? The problem is that when you're making history, you usually don't know it, do you? I mean, think about it from the terms of your kids. Your kids don't know that what you are doing in their life this week is going to one day be a part of their formative history. They don't see that now. Maybe 2 or 3 decades from now, they'll look back and say, oh, Mom and Dad, that first week in 2018, man, just the things that you were doing that week, it really cemented some things in my life. It helped shape and form my path and direction and everything. They may do that later in life, but right now, they don't see that, do they? You know why? Because they're kids. And all they see is the now. To them, you just played together. To them, you just, kicked the soccer ball back and forth. To them, you just had pizza together. To them, you just went and saw a movie together. They just see the now. But you and I are adults. And we see yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And we know better, don't we? We know that by showing up week after week in the life of our children in a variety of different ways, that we are actually making history with them. Do you know that most people don't look at a clock to see what time it is? Most people look at a clock to see how much time they have left. And this number right here, 936, that is a big number, isn't it? But if you are here today and you have kids who are grown, you would be the first one up here and say, it may seem big, but my friends, that flies by oh so fast. In fact, after your child's preschool years, which number about 260 weeks, after that time, you will have 676 weeks left with your kindergartner. After your child's elementary years, which are about 300 and change as far as number of weeks, you will then have 364 weeks left with your middle schooler. And after your middle school years, which total 156 weeks, you will then have 208 weeks left with your ninth grader. Our organization took this whole concept and made an app for it. It's called the ParentCue app, and it's a free app for Android or iPhone. And on one of the functions of this app is that it has a timer on there that helps you visualize the time that you have left with your children. You put in their birthdays, and then every week, or every time you open up the app, this is my daughter Kennedy, and it says right up here, it says 653 weeks until graduation for my daughter Kennedy. My son Nash, I have 497 weeks left until he graduates from high school. I have declared this ParentCue app the most helpful and depressing app all at the same time, right? But the point is that when you see how much time you have left, you tend to do more with the time you have now. The power of this illustration is that it visualizes two things that are both equally true at the exact same time. One is that every week matters. And two, you don't have to get it all done in a week. Because, would you agree with this statement? All weeks are not created equal, right? In my household, some weeks work better than others. Some weeks I'm like, man, we got this parenting thing. And then some weeks I'm like, why do we have children, right? It's just like, I don't know why. I'm sorry, God. Forgive us as parents, right? And so here's the thing. That's why we say it's not just time that matters. It's not just about adding more time. Get more done in your day with your kids. Get more done in your week with your kids. That's why it's not just about time. It's time over time that enables us to make a history with our kids. So for the remaining part of our time together tonight, I want to talk about three things that we can give kids over time that will enable us to make a history with them that is worth repeating. So the first thing is love. We say that love over time gives a child a sense of worth. When you talk about what is the number one thing that kids and teenagers need most over time, love is a great place to start, because without love, the rest of this talk doesn't make any sense. Without love, a lot of things in this world don't make sense. Take music, for example. Any music fans here in the room? One or two. Okay, all right, great. Let's huddle up and just talk, okay? But think about it. I mean, without love, there would be no Aretha. There'd be no Dolly. There'd be no Whitney. There'd be no Celine. There'd be no Adele. What kind of world is that, right? I mean, without love, there'd be no Elvis. There wouldn't be the Beatles, right? There wouldn't be Barry White. And there'd be none of the Michaels, both Bolton and Bublé, right? And if you have no idea who these people are, and you're under 30 years old here, then tonight what this means is that without love, there'd be no Taylor Swift. That's what that means. I mean, without love, the blues would be beige. Think about it. Deep thought for the night. Without love, country music would just be about beer and pickup trucks, right? Without love, rock and roll would need a lot more guitar solos. Without love, rap music would stay the same, right? I mean, it just would. Love may be the best idea to ever come along. And if you're here tonight and you believe in God, you know where this whole idea of love came from, right? It came from Him. And if that is true, then that means that every single person that you and I will ever meet in our lives, it means that they were created to need love, that they were designed to pursue intimacy, and that they are wired to connect. So love matters. And so what I want to talk about right now is a few practical ways that we can show love to our kids so that they have a sense of worth, because love over time helps a child or a teenager have a sense of worth. So the first thing when it comes to showing love to our kids, we would say, is to show up. Now, this sounds like the most obvious idea in all of the world. I understand that. But one of the first things to do when it comes to showing love to someone is to show up in their life predictably. That means that you need to figure out what your schedule is. We all have busy schedules, but what are going to be the predictable times that your kids know that mom or dad is going to be there? Because nothing says priority like predictability, right? That your kids know whether it is every morning at breakfast, whether it's at night before they go to bed, whether it's Saturday mornings, whether it's Tuesday afternoons, whatever it may be, we as parents need to figure out what are the predictable times, or just my schedule's so busy, what is the predictable time? I can only do this time. The answer is whatever works for you. I'm not here to give you the answer. I'm just here to say that we need to figure out what that is. And then once we figure out what that time is, we need to guard that time and make it a priority. And in order for it to count, you know this, but it's worth repeating. When you are with your child, whatever that time may be, in order for it to count, that means that you have to be fully present. And that means that this device, whichever one you choose to sport, it means that it can wait. The emails, the texts, the phone calls, the Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram, whatever you rock on here, okay? This can wait because you are busy showing love. You are busy proving worth to your child. So the number one way that we show love to our children is to show up. The second thing is this, is that we know them. We know our children. Now, knowing our children isn't like knowing some sort of mathematical quadratic formula where once you learn it, it pretty much stays the same, right? I mean, our kids are ever changing, ever growing, ever evolving beings. And my daughter, who is 7 years old, I know that right now, in this phase, her favorite colors, not color, because she has more than one, is pink and it's purple. And I know that she loves stuffed animals, and she loves to create. She is really into creating her own slime these days. It's awesome, not really. So she's got that. She loves animals. We have a dog, we have 2 guinea pigs, and now she wants a cat, right? She loves animals. And at nighttime, when we're tucking her in the bed, she likes to turn over and you know, we get a paintbrush, and she likes to pretend paint on her back, like mommy and daddy draw a picture, like paint a mermaid, daddy, and I pretend a mermaid and do that, and that puts her to sleep. It's taxing, Finn. Okay, I'm just telling you. Wow, what have I done? So my son, Nash, who is 10, his favorite baseball team are the Dodgers. His favorite color is blue, obviously. He loves Legos. He loves Star Wars. He loves video games. And at night, to help him relax, he likes to have the inside of his arm scratched like this. I don't know why. He just does. It relaxes him and puts him to bed. Those are my kids at 7 and 10. A year from now, some of those things are going to change. Some will stay the same. 10 years from now, a lot of those things will probably change. I hope 10 years from now, when Kennedy is 17, that she still loves animals, and I hope she still loves to create. And I hope Nash, at 20 years old, I hope he still loves the Dodgers, and I hope he still loves Star Wars. That would be awesome. But if I have to do this to him when he's 20, or paint on my daughter's back when she's 17, I'm not doing that. Dad's not. Get out of here. So, knowing who your children are and how they're wired and what they like and what they don't like, that requires time to sit with them and to listen to what they're saying, to listen to what they're not saying. And so find some time this week to discover or rediscover what makes your child uniquely who they are and what they like. So we show up, we know them, and then we never run away. And here's what I mean by that. I know you're not planning on going home and packing up your bags and walking away from your family. I get that. As parents sometimes, though, especially as our kids get older in the teenage years, we can, as parents, unintentionally disengage emotionally from our kids. And here's what I mean by that. When your kids get older, and I don't know what older means. It might be 10, it might be 12, it might be 16, whatever. Your kids are going to do something incredibly stupid, right? They're going to break a rule. They're going to break a rule, one of your top rules, maybe your top rule. They may break a school rule. They may break a county rule. I don't know what the rule is, but they're going to do something dumb. And it's going to have consequences that follow that decision, right? And it is going to get messy. And how we, as parents, respond in that situation can forever impact our relationship with our children. It's interesting when you look at the Old Testament, you look at how God interacted with the Israelites, right? God gave them rules, and the Israelites broke those rules. And not just once, they broke them again and again and again and again and again and again. And guess what? God showed up anyways. I mean, that's what he does with us, right? God gave us rules, and what did we do? We broke them. And he showed up in our lives anyways. And my point is just simply this. When our children do something dumb, when they break a rule that has rightful consequences that come with it, it is an opportunity for us. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't be punished. They should be punished. But it is an opportunity for us. Despite how messy it gets, it is an opportunity for us to show up and to prove to them unconditional love. To show up to them and to let them know that we are here, that we aren't going anywhere, and that they still matter, and that we will see them through this mess. I mean, after all, if we want kids to grow up and believe in a God who loves them despite their mistakes and despite their mess, they need real people. They need moms and dads. They need adults in their life who will show up and do the same for them. So love over time shows a child worth, okay? The second thing we would say that a child needs over time are tribes. Tribes over time equal a sense of belonging. And here's what I know. I know for all of us, and I'm going to speak collectively for all of us, we all desire to have a place to belong and someone who believes in us. I think that's a fair statement. I don't know you, you don't know me that much, but I would guess that all of us here, we desire a place to belong and someone who believes in us. Or to say it another way, sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You want to be where you can see that our troubles are all the same. You want to be where everybody knows your name, right? So we all need a tribe. What is a tribe? A tribe, we would say, is a group of people who are linked together by something in common. That's it. That something in common can be several things. It can be ancestry. It can be your experiences that you have. It can be your politics. It can be your theology. It can be your sports team, whatever it may be. Tribes are groups of people who are linked together by something in common. And oftentimes, when we interact with one another, we actually introduce ourselves sometimes by the tribe that we roll with, right? We say things like, well, did you know that I'm a musician? Did you know that? Yeah, I'm also a foodie. Or maybe I'm a reader, or I'm an athlete, or, hey, I'm a Christian too. Instant tribe, right? So we all need a place to belong, and we all need someone who believes in us. So call it a network, call it a family, call it a tribe. You can call it whatever you want. My point is simply this, is that all of us, we need one, right? We need a place to belong, and we need somebody who believes in us. And the reason why tribes matter is because tribes are one of God's primary ways that he has communicated his love throughout the centuries, right? Jesus told a story one day about the power of a tribe. And he told a story about a father with two sons. And the younger son wanted his inheritance so that he could go off into the far world and he could start his own business, he could do his own thing, he could make his own friends, he could make his own fortune, he could make his own mark in the world. And the father allowed his son to go and do just that. Unfortunately, due to a series of unwise choices and things got messy, and the fact that this kid never had a Financial Peace University course, right? He ended up blowing through all of his inheritance. And it got to the point where he was so poor that he ended up working at a barbecue joint in South Georgia, right? And he had no place to live, that he had to live out back with the pigs. And he was, he was cold, and he was smelly, and he was hungry, to the point where he just said, you know what? Enough. I don't want to do this anymore, and I want to go home. And you know the story of the prodigal son and how it all ends, that the son makes his way home. And when I kind of visualize this whole story playing out, I imagine, the son walking back through the field to the house where he grew up, and I imagine the dad out there on the porch. I don't know if they had a porch, but I imagine a great big porch out there, and the father sees the son coming from a distance, and the father does what any father would do in that situation. He runs out to meet his son, and he embraces his son and gives him the type of hug that only a father can give his son, despite what must have been an awful stench, right? And why did the father do that? Well, he did it because he loved his son. And how he put it, he says, this son of mine was lost, and now he is found. Translated is, my son lost his way, and now he is back home. This father understood the power of what a tribe can do. So much so that in that moment, that father did two things that were so awesome. Number one, he put a ring on his son's finger to let him know that he still had a family. Despite his mess, despite the mistakes that he made, he still had a family in which he belonged. That was the significance of the ring. The second thing that he did was that he threw a gigantic party with all of his friends and all of his neighbor, the whole community, to help his son, to remind his son that you still have a place and a people and a tribe in which you belonged. See, the father wanted to send a very clear message to his son, and that message was basically this: there is still a seat for you at our table. And this is a place where you are known, and this is a place where you are welcome, and this is a place where you are forgiven, and this is a place where you belong. And if we want our kids to experience the same power of a tribe, they need people. They need family. They need extended family. They need church family. They need people in their lives who will make them feel known and welcome and forgiven, so that they feel like that they belong. So when it comes to a tribe and giving our kids a sense of a tribe in our family, here are some few practical things that we can do, because when it comes to tribe, a big thing of a tribe are the traditions of a tribe, right? Like when you've grown up and you've hung out with certain people from maybe high school or college or right now, or you have a group of friends because of a sports team or common interest, and there are like just things that you guys do, your semi-annual, your annual traditions, like those traditions help bring a tribe together, right? So it might be time for us to keep a tradition. If we want our kids to feel like, hey, they are a part of this family tribe that we have, we need to think about some traditions that we can either keep on passing down that we grew up in, right? You probably have some traditions that you had at your household that you're like, oh yeah, on this time every day we would do this and we would always do this, and maybe you can pass some of those traditions down. Or if you didn't have those, it's time to think about what are some new traditions that we can start. So when it comes to traditions, number one, think about them in terms of seasons, right? Seasonal traditions. It can be, when whoever birthday it is in the family, you have the goofy birthday hat that the person has to wear all day long, no matter how ridiculous it looks like, right? They got to wear it to school or to work, and that might be a tradition that you start with your family. I don't know. Or it could be seasonal. It could be like in the fall, right? I mean, there's apple picking. There's pumpkin patch. There's maybe cut down your own Christmas tree. There's the fall camping trip. It could be a New Year's tradition. It could be a July 4th tradition. It could be a summer vacation tradition. It could be a summer staycation tradition. But just look at the seasons of the year, and what I'm saying is don't do them all. I'm just saying what is one that you could start as a family? And this would be like the tradition of what we always do. The second thing might be a weekly tradition, right? A weekly tradition that you could start with your family, and this might revolve around some of the priority time that you already weaved out in your calendar. It could be a Saturday morning tradition. You know what would be great is a Saturday morning, let's all sleep in tradition. Like, that's a good one. Let's all stay in our beds till 8:30. That would be awesome, right? It might be, FaceTime with the grandparents on Sunday kind of a deal. I don't know what it would be, but a weekly tradition, usually I would say the easiest one, has to revolve around food because we all have to eat, right? And you know that it's the sights and the sound and the smells of food that just have a way of leaving a permanent impression in our minds. Like, you probably remember some food smells when you were growing up from grandma's house or whoever house it may be. And so think about what are some food traditions that we could start. It might be, Saturday morning donuts with Dad, or it might be, Taco Tuesday. Who doesn't love Taco Tuesday? Or breakfast for dinner on Wednesday, or fast food Friday, or fast food and every day that ends with Y. It could be whatever you want to do, right? But I would encourage you, if you don't already share a meal together with your family, to figure out how can we weave that into our schedule. And it's not something that you need to do all the time every day. Just pick one time a week, because here's the thing. When you share a meal together with someone, especially with your family, it is a chance to relationally connect with one another, to see what is going on in each other's world, and it's a chance to have a shared family experience. So look at your calendar and just see, is there one day this coming week that you guys could have a meal together? It doesn't have to be dinner, and it doesn't have to be gourmet, okay? It doesn't even have to be at home. It just has to be together, okay? So seasonal tradition, there's the weekly tradition, and then there's the verbal tradition. And the verbal tradition is like the inside joke of a tribe that if you're a part of the tribe, you get. You ever been with a group of people and somebody says something, they're all like, ha, 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 and you're like, ha, 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 I don't know why I'm laughing, right? Because you weren't there in that moment when it happened, and it's hard to kind of fully appreciate that moment because you weren't there for that moment. And that's kind of like an example of a verbal tradition. For our family, we have a couple. One that stands out recently is a couple years ago, we went to Florida for vacation, and part of our vacation, because my son loves Legos, we went to Legoland, right? And we went there for a day, and when you're only at a park for a day, you're trying to cram and go, 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 go. And so we went to this one part of Legoland, and there was this giant, it was just a giant play area, right? And it was this giant tree house made out of Legos, and it was really cool. It was really tall, had multiple bridges, had slides everywhere, but it had this really gigantic slide from the very top that wasn't just a straight shot down. It was kind of like one of those, like this slide that had several humps in there all the way down. So there's gigantic, play area, kids everywhere, and so we decided to play hide and seek in this play area, me, my wife, and Nash and Kennedy, right? So we played a few rounds of that. On the last round, I was it, and I found Nash pretty quick. I found Kennedy pretty quick, but my wife's pretty good at hide and seek. Who knew? So she was hiding. I couldn't find her. We were kind of at that point when you're at a area at a park, like it's time to go. Like we're bored with this area. Let's move on. So I was trying to gather the kids and say, "Where's Mom? We need to get going now." And they're like, "Well, I thought she was there. I thought she was there." Nobody knew who she was at. So we were at the bottom of that gigantic slide I told you about, and my wife somehow hid in the treehouse all the way. She was up at the very top of the slide. And so, like, communication-wise, when there's 100 kids playing and screaming and running around, you can't just be like, "Hey," So my wife, to get our attention, you would think that she would say something like, "Hey, Mike," which is a common name, I get. But how about a "Hey, Nash," or "Hey, Kennedy," like pretty loud, right? But instead, my wife decides to drop. She says, "Yoo-hoo!" She's never said "yoo-hoo" in her life, so it's not like I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's my wife. I've never heard this before." But the moment that she does it, like in movies and cartoons, they're over dramatized to that point where somebody says something and like all of creation stands still in that moment. It was like in that moment, all the kids collectively just paused in their tracks, and there was no voices, and her yoo-hoo echoed over that play area to the point where all the kids and the parents who were sitting on the perimeter just talking, they all stopped and looked up at her, and she decides to throw a wave up like this, yoo-hoo! And we look at her, and she decides that the quickest point from A to B is not to go down the treehouse and to us. She decides to go down the slide, which is plastic, in the middle of the summer, which is humid, and she's wearing shorts, okay? So skin meets plastic meets humidity, and it is the most awkward slide you could possibly imagine. It was it takes her forever to get down the slide. I can see parents on the perimeter kind of like, kids resume their business. She comes down, she's laughing, we're laughing. It was our moment, right? And then we get back home a couple weeks later, and something was happening, and all of a sudden my son just yells out a, yoo-hoo! And instantly, we all start dying laughing. If you would have been there that night with us, and you're like, you guys are crazy. Like, what are you laughing about, this yoo-hoo? Like, is that a drink? What is that? But that is an example of a verbal tribe. And we can diffuse a tense situation in our house with whether it's between me and my wife or me and my kids, and somebody yells out a yoo-hoo. It's one of those things. It's an example of a verbal tradition. So what are some traditions seasonally, weekly, and verbally that you could do as a family? Okay, the last thing that we give our kids over time, we give them love, we give them a tribe, a place to belong, someone who believes in them, and then we give them fun. Fun over time gives a kid a sense of connection. And what do I mean by fun? Well, when it comes to fun, I mean everything. When I say fun, I mean in terms of playground, play make-believe, play dress-up, play station, play dough, like you just name, like on and on and on. Like when it comes to play, I mean do whatever you can to help your kids have a good time. And you're like, well, wait a minute, anything? Like anything? Well, no, not anything, right? I'm sure there are some fun things that your kids should not do because it's not safe and they're not old enough, and it probably breaks a command in the Bible, right? So we don't make sure we want to stay away from those, right? But here's what I would say. It's just to make sure that your list of fun things that your kids can't do doesn't outweigh your list of fun things that your kids can do. Otherwise, we could be in jeopardy of losing them. And here's what I'm saying. Your kids, actually not just your kids, you, all of us, we are wired to have fun. Do you know that? We were created to have fun. But my guess is, if you're like the average adult, you probably grew out of that. And that fun feeling is now it's gone, gone, gone. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Ba-doop, right? That's cheesy. I know it. It's supposed to be cheesy, guys. So listen, here's my thing, is that when it comes to fun, fun is one of the most important things that we can give our kids. And you might say, well, man, is this fun in the Bible? Well, no. Well, I think it's in the Bible, okay? The exact word fun may not be in the Bible, but all of its relatives live there. For example, check this out. Philippians 4:4 says what? Rejoice in the Lord always, right? Okay, we move on. Psalm 68:3. May the righteous be glad. This isn't just me. This is you. This is like together, all right? So here we go. Proverbs 17:22. A heart is good medicine. And Galatians 5:22. One of the fruits of the Spirit is joy. Okay? So when it comes to helping our kids have fun, I think if we just learned to smile and have a little bit more fun at home, and even at church, our kids would grow up with a healthier perspective of family and of the faith community. So when it comes to helping our kids experience fun, here's what I would say, is that have you forgotten how to play? Are you one of those adults who grew up out of it, and that the things of life and the stresses of life and the schedules of life, and Dad, can you play? Not right now. Dad, can you play? A little bit later. Dad, can you play? Mommy's busy right now. Mama, can you play? Like all the time, my 7-year-old says, can we draw? Can we play? Can we go outside? And more often than not, I will say no, because I'm doing dishes, I'm taking out the trash, I'm paying bills, I'm doing the things that grown-ups are supposed to do, but they don't understand that. And so what I'm saying is, I know you can't say yes to every time they ask you to play, because they will ask you every single time, every 5 minutes. I get that. Just make sure that you are strategic, that the no's don't outweigh the yeses as well. Does that make sense? Okay, so a few things when it comes to helping our kids have fun, I would say, is that when it comes to fun over time, if it helps a kid experience connection, I think a few things about fun. Fun convinces our kids that we actually like them, okay? Now, I would dare say that your kids know that you love them, right? But do they feel like you love them? And they may not be confident that you love them until they have a little evidence that you actually like them. They may never feel like you like them until you start having fun with them. Now, I know we talked earlier about all the ways that we can prove love to our kids over time. I just think we might need to go back and add one more to that list, and that is to have fun with them, because fun convinces kids that you actually like them. Secondly, I would say fun reconnects what has been disconnected. Therapists have long known a secret that we as parents need to understand, and that is that fun can actually be the bridge that helps rebuild trust with you and your kids. So if something has come between you and your kid relationally, fun may be able to be the bridge that helps rebuild that relationship. In fact, fun may be one of the best ways to prove forgiveness to someone. Maybe that's why the book of Romans says to show mercy cheerfully to someone. So lastly, I would say number 3 is that fun fosters resilience. And you and I, as adults, know that life is hard and it can deal you some bad hands, right? And if we want our kids to press through the pain that may inevitably show up in their life at some point down the road, they will need a collection of fun memories to press them through, to let them know that the joys of living and laughing and loving far outweigh the pain that may eventually show up in their life. So fun over time equals connection. Now, we've talked about all these things that we give our kids over time. Time over time creates a history. And we've talked about these things tonight, and here's the thing, is that we could have easily talked about what happens when young people don't have these things in their life. When they don't have time from their parents, when they don't have love, when they don't have a tribe, when they don't have fun. Our culture is full of people who have those things in a void in their life, right? And these things are important that we talked about. Again, when it comes to love, I want you to understand that love is just love, right? Love is just a second-hand emotion, okay? Musical reference there, all right? Until you prove love over time. And when you show a young person love over time, then it gives them a sense of worth, okay? When it comes to tribes, tribes are just a group of people you hang out with. Tribes are just a club that you sign your kids up to be a part of until you put it over time. And you give them a tribe over time, then it gives them a sense of belonging. And then fun is just fun. It's just playing games. It's hanging out. It's just fun until you put it over time, and then it helps establish a connection to help you go deeper in your relationship with your child. And so we'll kind of wrap it up, and I would say this. When it comes to time, you will only know your child, in my case with Nash. I will only know Nash as a 10-year-old once, and that's it. And this week is a unique opportunity for me as his dad to step into his life and to know him for who he is now. And next year at this time, when he has changed and he is no longer 10, he is 11, I will have been a part of that change. Time flies, is what I'm trying to say at the end of all this. It is just a phase. Please don't miss it. I want to show you a video that kind of takes everything we talked about tonight and wraps it up in one statement, and then we'll come back up here, and if you have any questions, we'll take those. If not, then we'll pray and we'll go. and do that. But watch this video, and we'll be back in a second. Maybe. Yeah, exactly. See, you got it. You got it. That was great.